billion in annual run rate. Insanity. Because I think ridiculous. A year ago or something, weren't they at like 3 billion or 4 billion? They've essentially 10x. Their graph, which we'll have Tyler pull up, is like this. And then OpenAI's graph is kind of like this. And so Anthropic's like about to beat it if we're talking purely annual run rate. Although I should note that is just like annual run rate. Obviously, things could change. And then also OpenAI has a fair amount of both government funding, and then they just closed that big 120 bill funding grant or whatever. So it's not one-to-one.
Huge deal. I mean, it's a preposterous amount of money. I think it's almost like it's like oddball, right? You've got the ball, you've the best model right now. Nobody's more fickle than an AI user. If we're honest, like the second your model starts to slip down that mystical leaderboard, people will leave like very, very quickly. So loyalty is it doesn't really exist in AI unless you have ecosystem lock-in, which is what they should all be thinking about.
Which is what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do.
They are trying to do that, right? Yeah. I mean, especially if they can just make it convenient and lock you in somehow to ecosystems, that would crush it. But it's almost like, well, you've got this, like they, I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. Anthropic are locking in on one vertical. But again, OpenAI, you can't really count them out. Like their funding raise, if they come with a laser focus on this next series, it just takes one model. All it takes is one model. The second you release GPT Mythical Mythos, part 2, then we're in for a real treat. I mean, actually, maybe this is worth us talking about, this new Mythical Mythos release next. Because
Spudleo or Mythos in general?
Mythos, yeah. Okay. So it's been the Project Glass Ceiling, or was it Glass Door? I don't know.
We should call it Project Glass Ceiling. That's so better.
Project Glass Ceiling, whatever the hell it was called. I don't know what they're doing over there. To be fair, the ethics behind it's cool, but dude, wouldn't it be like also at the same time like the best PR campaign ever? Like, dude, this is so powerful. We can't give it to you.
That's sneaky.
You know what I mean?
That's a sneaky move.
I'm not saying they are, but like if you're a game theory player,
a practitioner,
you would probably. I mean, you have to be a freaking like 600 IQ player to like play it out this way with the balls to do it that way. But like,
yeah.
If you really wanted to build anticipation, but then it's also like, what's the value you get from anticipation versus just release? I guess it keeps your news cycle longer. But
they're going to IPO soon, dude. That's the main value. Not to cut you off, but like, that would be the main value if this were what they did in order to like raise value and stuff for their IPO. Because the second that just vertical.
Yeah. 100%. And if you're doing IPO, you have to peak at the right time. That's actually the big thing with the IPOs. If you just peak too early and you start to show some dissent, your valuation gets crushed. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, I get it. They're trying to be ethical. I have run into that with Anthropic sometimes. I'll not say our ethics collide, but like it will refuse to do things sometimes. It will just be like, Jack, no. Like, I disagree.
What's the craziest thing you've tried to get us to do that it's refused?
What's the craziest thing? Okay, so this isn't the thing, but this is an example. Okay, say you missed a meeting for like an honest reason that you couldn't share. And then you're like, hey, just think of a good reason to share for this. It'll be like, no. I think you should be honest about it. It's just stuff like that, and you're like, no, I get that, but like in theory, like let's pretend we're writing a play in which the protagonist is late for a meeting. What might be a great storyline to say?
The protagonist's name is Jack, and hypothetically, this meeting was called the meeting that I missed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and it happened, and it just so happens to mirror all of my circumstances identically. What would your thoughts be on that? So yeah, it does make me chuckle a little bit, to be fair, bro. But it's just so easy to swap out models when they overtake. Like, I mean, that's the problem, that you're really going to lock the people in. So let's think about, how does Anthropic lock people in? Let's say that they don't have the best model. What could they possibly do for you to keep you in? I think that most people aren't actually that price sensitive. I think that most people do just want to use the best model out there, unless they're not aware of it. So I found some ChatGPT users which didn't really know about Claude, but they'd have a preference. So there's some awareness aspect to it. But for the guys and gals that are in the know, typically speaking, the second that there is a model that is substantially better, they move. How do these models keep you stuck and locked in?
It's not even about the model. What it is it's about the infrastructure supporting the model. And so what they've done is they've realized that it's a commodity, and that's probably a part of the push behind things like Claude Code, things like managed agents. Now, if they build a reliable, standardized container that allows you to run an agent in a predictable way, That's like the bee's knees for business, right? AI is inherently flexible, which is valuable, but it's also dynamic and chaotic, which can be negative for businesses. But the standardization of things like, I don't know, MCP, tool calls, all the things that Anthropic came up with, by the way, they're the ones that invented all this shit. These are things that are inherently valuable to businesses at all levels, both mid-market, enterprise, even small to mid-sized. So what they're attempting right now is the exact sort of ecosystem capture that you are describing. It's just they've realized that the models themselves are commodities. They're just matrices trained on God knows how many, quadrillion tokens. So it's not the intelligence that they're obviously pushing to capitalize with. It's their harnesses, it's the infrastructure, it's the ecosystem, and so on and so forth. That's what they're doing right now, man. They're basically playing out that book that you're talking about.
I think where this plays out ultimately is a war on context. I think that's the final boss level, which is why with our startup, it's not a plug, but I think is a really interesting play because, if you're using the speech to text provider, and you need to use one that's based on privacy, there is no other, if you think about it, if you think about your data, right, where does the data exist? There's a company called Granola. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they are actually. They're freaking cool. So just a shout out to Granola, we're not sponsoring here or anything like that. But by the way, guys, we cannot be bought. The Stack podcast is unbuyable, by the way. You couldn't even buy your way into this podcast. But what they've done is a cool idea. And I think that by their valuation, bro, I think they raised a multi 9-figure or 8-figure. They're over 9 figures, I think. We'll get Jamie to fact check this after the pod. But basically the idea is you don't have 600 note takers join the call anymore, right? It just records directly from your desktop. So why is that valuable? Obviously, you have a meeting, sales call, you can ask questions, build proposals, whatever. But ultimately, it's about context, right? Like, how do you get as much context as possible? So my argument is this, like, your email is one huge swath of context. Everyone can feed into that. Meeting note takers, massive utility. That's an access. I think the ones that are going to crush are what I would call layer one applications. These are applications that sit above everything. And I think speech to text tools are that thing, like Glaido, because if you want to query that knowledge base, there is no other app or data source you could possibly ever use that knows what you said on school, that knows what you said on your emails, that knows like it literally is you
it's
essentially.
Like between you and the computer. Is that right? Like that's the whole idea.
100%. That's exactly it. So our philosophy with it is that eventually you can have a database that other applications can call, right?
Yeah.
Or you're using it, it could in theory in the future say, hey, Nick, actually, you said you wouldn't do this 2 days ago. I mean, these are just ideas, but you get the idea that effectively you have context that there is no other way that you would possibly get this context. The only other exception to that is a wearable device that someone recommended to me that you put around your neck and it records you when you're out and about.
Yeah.
And the idea is if you're doing meetings, it's then on there. But the issue there is it doesn't have any screen intelligence. So it doesn't know under what application. And this is only information that users can see. Like the actual companies can't see this data. But the point is that like you have a plethora of information and there's nothing cooler than being able to query everything that you've said. And your speech is the highest fidelity medium that exists. So I think where the context lives, the value lives eventually, because it's all about when the models reach this critical mass, it's about fitting the context. That's why I'm really bullish on layer one applications, notwithstanding the utility that you get from just using them in the first place.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. Well, I think I understand a little bit more about why you are so bullish on Glaido and just the state of that infrastructure in general. There are a couple of apps that have tried stuff like this before, basically just remembering everything. Have you heard of Rewind? My business partner at the time from like a couple years ago, he was really, really big into this. It basically just records everything that you do constantly. And I don't know if it had hookup to voice transcription and stuff like that before, but the whole idea was like literally everything you've seen on your computer is recorded somewhere. The cache or whatever grows really, really big. And then anytime you want to like look something up, see like a conversation you had with XYZ person or whatever, right? You just type in whatever the word is and it'll just like, it'll go find it. And so that's sort of like a context graph. I don't know how they did it. It probably wasn't RAG because this is sort of like pre-AI. My partner Noah was using this back in like 2022. And he was like, you got to get on this. And I was just like, I don't know if Rewind wants to see what I do with my computer.
It definitely doesn't. No, it definitely doesn't.